Hey everyone, DJ here. Welcome back to the series. This week, I have a confession to make, and that confession is that I have never actually read through all of Christopher Awdry's run of the Railway series. Crazy, right? Now, I'm not really sure what the general fan consensus on Chris's books are, and whether or not you are considered a Thomas the Tank Engine diehard if you haven't read them. I know some people don't really like them all that much and see them as kind of bad. The reason I personally haven't read them is that the collection that has all of Chris's books wasn't published or made widely available in North America, and currently the only way to read them is a Google Drive done by the unlucky Tug. And if I'm being honest, I prefer physical books to digital way more. It's just kind of hard to read through. I also have a hard time with Chris's books, as although they definitely aren't a departure in terms of the characters, world building, or lore of Wilbert Awdry's run, they just feel kind of unnecessary. For me, Wilbert Awdry concluded the Railway series with Duke the Lost Engine, the culmination of years of storytelling and lore planning. A book that tied the various regions of Sodor together and had a very good high note to go out on. Chris's books, while not really bad by any means, just don't really feel warranted. I can enjoy Wilbur Awdry's run of the first 27 books and not really need to go any further. Gordon's arc about retiring and Thomas as well as the narrow gauge engine's adventures to other places sound fun enough, but again, it just doesn't feel necessary to me. Which brings us to the subject of today's video, Hugh, the Skarloey Railway's new little engine. Okay, so for the record, I have read some of Chris Awdry's books, and for this video, I did sit down and read New Little Engine, which I have to say isn't really very good. It's not terrible, it's just that the stories are kind of boring, go nowhere, and the token New Little Engine, Hugh, is only in the very last page of the book and has no dialogue. But to be more specific and on topic, Hugh is a red side tank engine built for the Skarloey Railway in 1996. The railway's number 7, and named after the Skarloey Railway's chief mechanical engineer, Mr. Hugh, who, along with the other engines, found out about at Hugh's naming ceremony. Hugh is actually quite special in my opinion, as he was the last character created by Wilbert Awdry before his death, with Christopher Awdry stating that his father simply never had time to write a story about him, thus leading to Chris Awdry writing a book about him here. The more heavy-duty parts of his construction were done at Crovan's Gate Works, with the final assembly of him done at the Skarloey Railway's engineering department. Hugh does sterling work for the Skarloey Railway now, and his trading card states he is a younger engine. He relies upon the knowledge and experience of the older engines to help him get his work done. Hugh also bears a striking resemblance and similarity to the Tallyclin Railway number 7 Tom Rolt, who he is of course based on. And the Railway series lore explains this by stating that much of the experience with Tom Rolt was passed from Tallyclin workers to those at Crovan's Gate, which I take to mean that Tallyclin simply inspired the workers at Crovan's Gate. Now, of course, Hugh only ever appears in one book, and he never speaks, so as to any personality cues beyond his trading card, I have no idea. He is really such a nothing character that I really have nothing to say in terms of fixing him either, other than my normal just use him more critique. But with that out of the way, let's talk about Hugh's basis. Hugh is based on the Tallyclin Railway's number 7 locomotive Tom Rolt, an 042T narrow gauge steam locomotive, 2 foot 3 inch gauge to be exact, built in 1991. The locomotive was built using parts from an Andrew Barclay locomotive, which was originally constructed in 1949 for the Bordnamona Peat Harvesting Company in Ireland. The engines were designed to haul and use the peat as fuel through the Irish bogs. In total, there were 3, originally numbered 1 to 3, but later 43 to 45. They were put into storage, however, after they performed poorly with only a few years of service under their buffers. Flash forward to the 1960s, and the Tallyclin needed a new engine as the popularity of their passenger services had gone through the roof. On the 1st of January 1969, the railway purchased the Bardnamona Barclay engine, number 1, with the intention of not only regauging it, but essentially using its parts to build an entirely new engine. The boiler, cylinders, wheels, and pistons would all be utilized, new water tanks that could hold enough water for round trips would be constructed, and other parts were acquired elsewhere. Tom Rolt's construction didn't happen overnight, however, as by the time number 1 arrived, the Tallyclin was successfully running 3 locomotives, and the subsequent rebuilds of Tallyclin and Dalgok meant that the need for Tom Rolt was less and less. For the time being, the locomotive was worked on whenever the railway had time, and it was given the temporary name Irish Peat. By 1988, however, they finally decided to put efforts into finishing the locomotive. It was decided it would be given the name Tom Rolt, after an author and early member of the Preservation Society that saved the Tallyclin, with the naming ceremony taking place on May the 6th, 1991. Tom Rolt, as stated in the Tallyclin Railway's YouTube video on the locomotive, is a powerful locomotive that can pull the heaviest trains. Tom Rolt may be a newer member of the Tallyclin's fleet, but he certainly is one with a lot of history. Okay, so I do have one thing to say other than they should have used Hugh more, and that is that I genuinely don't understand what was going on with Chris Awdry when he wrote this book. As I said earlier, Hugh was created by Wilbert Awdry before he died. He never created a story about him, and Chris Awdry decided to after Wilbert's death. But if I'm being honest, I don't really understand how this is Chris's attempt at making a story about Hugh, as other than the external events surrounding him, such as the naming ceremony itself, a few mentions of the railway needing a new engine, and literally just whatever seemed to be going on with the Skarloey Railway that week, nothing in the book has anything to do with Hugh. And although I'm hesitant to call Chris's book outright bad, I'm really tempted to here. I also wanted to make a brief mention of Fearless Freddy, a narrow-gauge character from the hit era of the show, who some saw as either a long-lost mid-Sodor engine or the hit era's equivalent of Hugh. The reasoning behind the latter specifically being theorized being the fact that Hugh and Freddy share the same number, 7. Now, I do like this theory, but honestly I find it really flimsy. Technically, yes, Freddy does stand in the place of Hugh, but as to whether or not there is a definitive connection between the two in the development phase of Freddy, I have no idea. I seriously doubt Hit Entertainment of all people would look into some nothing obscure Railway series character like Hugh at all, and the two engines' numbers being the same is probably a coincidence. But that's all I have to say in regards to my thoughts on the character. Okay, so here is the 2002 wooden railway Hugh, which apparently originally came with zoo cars, which I do not own as I purchased the singular engine off of eBay a while back, which I'm fine with as the zoo cars with Hugh is kind of a bizarre choice anyway. But as for the model of Hugh itself, it's pretty okay. It's nothing life-changing or anything, and I find the proportions of it to be a bit weird, but that's also coming from someone who predominantly collects die-cast, so take that with a pinch of salt. The paint job is fine, the face is okay, and I really don't have that much to say. A serviceable enough model, I'm giving it a 5 out of 10. In conclusion, Hugh is a character I had a lot of fun talking about, being the first UK-centered character in this series. He has a really unique history, and I gotta be honest, I would definitely be up to covering more narrow-gauge engines in the future, such as Millie or maybe Luke. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you have any suggestions for future characters, please leave them in the comments. See you all in the next one. Bye, guys!